Hi everybody, we are in Las Vegas at the DMI studio opening party. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're also going to do a studio tour and talk to people here and just generally have a rather lovely time. Hi everybody, hope you're doing marvelously well. We're in Vegas with Luca Pretolesi. Is that correct?
What's going on, Warren? Good to see you here.
It's great to be, well, first of all, it's great to be in Vegas, even though it's like 900 degrees outside, as normal.
Well, but then we have to say, I got to go to Vegas. Damn it.
No, it's such a fun place to be.
Yeah.
And this is Studio I in DMI.
Correct, exactly.
Is this pretty brand new, or am I just...
Yeah, so Studio DMI, we started in 2012. Mm-hmm. The entire facility was half of this room. The entire facility back then.
Oh, wow.
So it was a small place. Then, well, I think we're part of the EDM scene from the real beginning, and electronic music expand and explode in North America. And being Vegas, being in the right place on the capital, I think we kind of like explode with the scene. So like it's kind of surreal today to be here and have multiple rooms and do what we love.
It's amazing. You're right, though. You come to Vegas, there's always 2 or 3 incredibly famous DJs doing sets plastered all over the billboards. So.
That's true.
Yeah, and it's funny because we just left Berlin, which of course is like all dance music as well. We were at Super Booth, which was insane.
It's interesting how Berlin is like the capital of underground dance music, like techno and house, and Vegas is like mainstream, huge, you know. So
they complement each other.
They do.
Perfectly.
100%.
So this is your room, Studio I.
Correct.
Immediately we walked in, and it's absolutely gorgeous. It seems like you didn't spare any expense designing it. Really beautiful.
Thank you so much.
Would you do the geeky stuff and give us kind of a guided tour of your gear?
I can talk for hours.
Okay, that's fine. Well, so can I. So I suppose, if you don't mind, give us sort of a breakdown of your setup.
Yeah, there is a purpose of everything you see here. So this is a result for me of about 15, 16 years of kind of refine and get my workflow. My point is, I'm a hybrid guy. I do mixing and mastering, and I'm a finisher. So on certain records, like Major Lazer Project, Diplo, other records, my goal is not to take a step and just be like a mastering guy, the mixing. I take the project and I'll take it till the end. So for me, it was important to have a desk in a space that I can open my arms and make decisions without moving my head. So essentially, the board is set up as a stereo bus / mastering console, drum bus, and final stage of mastering. That's kind of the concept.
Fantastic.
So I start here on my initial stage of mixing, where I kind of create my compression EQ on my stereo bus, and I start to work on my drums, and then I finalize my mix or my master with final stage of mastering, of mixing.
That's amazing. So did you start off on consoles?
Yeah. So I went to recording school when I was like 17 years old. I learned analog gear. Everything. I went through everything. But then at one point, it was a tilt point where I say, okay, I go fully in the box, and then I step back and I say, no, hold on. I'm missing something. So I find kind of like my middle ground, which is fully in the box from the production side of the mix. So every details, every automation, but from the tone of my stereo bus, it's analog. So essentially, I usually start from the analog side to give the right tone, the right space and balance, and then I mix into that.
And I assume you love the tactile kind of idea of using the real controls.
I love 2 ends. So all the ADDA, they're dangerous. Convert 8, Convert 2. We have a really good power here. We have balanced power, nice cables, makes a difference. And then I have a custom Studio DMI EQ, which is a pretty crazy mid-side.
I've never seen it.
It does exist. It's only one.
Specifically for you.
So it's mid and side with mid-side insert to insert unit in the middle of the mid or side of the EQ. it's kind of interesting.
So I have a question because, coming from a more rock and roll place, we don't do that much mid-side. But I realized when it comes to dance stuff, especially in virtual instruments, everything's like super in your face.
Yeah.
You're trying, and we naturally, when we're recording acoustic instruments, pick up ambience from the room, and
Very true.
and it places things in a certain place.
Right.
And inherently, it's in the recording. But obviously, with dance music, a lot of that stuff is just slam you in the face, and you've got to create
Very
space.
True. Usually, what I usually do, I have kind of like my go-to way, which is my 300 hertz and down. It's pretty much mono.
Okay.
And I do kind of like a tree effect where I open the side a lot after the 300, and I close again, and I open again a lot, and I close the super top. So over like 14K, I make almost mono, because my concern is the small tweeter, when you have like very limited and compressed material, will not translate properly if you slam and compress the side too much. Again, I can talk a lot about this. So
no, this is really cool. I love this.
So it's kind of like, and I feel on big record that I was part of, like why people like connect with certain decision that I made. It was like open the side in an area that grab you and make an extreme close and extreme close again, where you feel that side is more because there is less before and less after.
This is a huge tip. I love that. I love that, but I understand, because it's the high mids where our ears are most sensitive, and that creates the space. So if you've got one instrument with 3 to 5K over here and one over there, they can feel wide. So
exactly.
I love that philosophy. Great stuff.
And then new in this room, it's the speakers, the sound that we switch, the 11. My God, like it's hard to describe the result of the actual room sound with the speakers. After a week of burning the SM11, the sounds, the way I can describe, they have like the expensive tone of hi-fi speakers that we have on the lounge, but with the precise, detailed separation between mid-range, upper mid-range, and top.
Wonderful.
So it's so pleasing. And then working 7-8 hours, and I usually work like 90 dBs. I want to just work and be able to turn around and talk with my assistant or with people here, and just so good. So I'm extremely.
No, I hear you. We have the same Focals, and we love them. What is interesting about them is we had multiple sets of speakers, and we flattened them all out so they all had this quote unquote same response.
Right.
These still sounded the smoothest in the high end. There's something about them which allows you to work for long periods of time.
Exactly.
And that's the reality now. We're living in a world where, there isn't a massive budget to remix one song.
Exactly.
You might be working on how many songs a day?
A lot. Like last year, we had 260 mixes come through us. The interesting notes about the previous studio, having only one room, we had the studio off for 1 hour a day, maximum 2 hours. Because Scott Banks, he would start working at 6 in the morning. And I would start working at 4 till 4 in the morning. So we ran, but then having this type of speakers is interesting how play low, medium, and loud, you have the same feeling. You don't get kind of like hype by get louder. It just almost feels like the same type of response. I notice a lot of cheap speakers, you kind of feel that there's a hype moment, but you get very tired and you play very low and you lose everything. So.
Sure. That's fantastic. And then you have the baby Focals here.
The little ones, It's interesting because I like to use this when I do like fades and reverb. I want to make sure that I can translate really well on small devices. I want to kind of emulate. Sometimes I cut in the back to literally take all the low end on the speakers to make sure that's kind of like my big iPhone playing.
Right.
Type of emulations.
Do you favor the small speakers when you're doing edits, little volume changes and stuff like that?
When I blend background vocal with lead vocals, when I do reverb, I do kind of interesting things like sidechain reverb when I want to have the reverb to make sure they move up with the lead vocal, but I don't want to get overwhelmed or like tricked by the room in any possible way. I want to make sure what I'm hearing is literally what is coming out.
Right.
And the main concern is from small devices that I notice a lot of mixes, they don't translate well because not having the proper mid-range placement on the real world of small devices is tricky. So I like to do that.
This has been a big discussion point for us. And it's in rock, a lot of the mid-late 90s to mid-early 2000s records do not translate very well on iPhones and things.
Very true.
Because the excitement was in the overheads.
Exactly.
And that was cool.
Too high.
That was really cool when you were listening on a hi-fi or whatever, or in your car, it was all splashy and it was all... Now you go back to some of those records and it's just like coming out of the little speaker. I've noticed, we're talking with Bob Horn and with Dave as well, Pensado, everybody's into the real getting detail in the highs, like I mean, just a new level of detail.
That's so true. That's so true. Another problem on dance music, producers tend to make mixes or even rough mixes way too wide across the spectrum.
Sure.
And just get cloudy everywhere. On the small speaker, they get kind of overwhelmed by that, like this crazy side information. So this just takes you back to reality, essentially.
Right. I love the idea of you talking about monoing stuff at 300 and below, because so much of this music ends up on vinyl now.
Exactly.
And as I'm sure you know, every mastering engineer will tell you, you can't have stereo there. The
100%,
stylus will just
100%.
jump out.
And that's another point. A lot of bass line on dance music, they're moving down to the C and they go up. They have like layer of bass with stereo information on the bass that I feel if you don't mono, when you go down, that fluffy like, side information on the bass will translate horrible on club when they have sub, they're literally mono.
Sure.
And you have like ADC, for example, this weekend, they have like side of the stage in stereo, and then you go back, it's literally mono. Everything's mono. Right. So it's got a little strange. So yeah, I agree to go like in a comfort zone. Let's say, okay, 300 down, smooth, and make it mono.
And what are you doing to do that? You're using the hardware?
Yeah, so I combine the custom EQ we have kind of like a filter that's frequency based. So I cut up to like 250 the side, or I do with the electric filter on the Mazalek, I do about up to 360. Now, that's on the stereo, but naturally through the mixing process in the box, I find myself naturally on groups to do that, to just kind of like go out, that I'm not exaggerating on the side, that I have to compensate it. So I don't want to find myself that I need to like do like a big cut on the side because I push too much on the side. I feel that naturally I build my mix in a way that is wide on the right spot, essentially.
I understand. So you make, and I understand, and I relate to that a lot. Making more decisions on an individual level rather than using the master bus to fix everything.
Exactly. No. To me, the master bus is the beginning of the mix, where I kind of like, okay, this song overall I feel is not bright enough. Instead of open 35 stems and just pull the typical EQ like this, I just do one time and open the top. Right. And when I open the top, I can go back in if something gets too bright and just do the opposite in the box.
What did DAW work with?
I use a Studio One.
Oh, wow.
After my 17 years on Logic and move a little bit on Pro Tools, I kind of get married the idea of Studio One, which is kind of, to me, the best of Pro Tools, like clip gain, all that, the flexibility of Logic, but when incredible routing of Studio One, they allow you to do like on the spot, on the fly, sidechain everywhere. On dance music, sidechain, it's a key. I find myself to do crazy routing that if I need to do on Logic, it's very complicated. You need to think. So this also drag and drop, grab a plugin, drag into the track and just open up. So very, very good. And
so a question I get asked, sorry to interrupt you, a question I get asked all the time, this is perfect for you, is people are always asking, what happened if you're working in one DAW and then you turn it over to a mixer?
Right.
And of course, there's the plugins and the virtual instruments. Yeah. What are you asking for from people? That's a good question.
So on the commercial, so what I feel on the pop world, on like major label, we can sometimes ask stems. So we get Pro Tools sessions. On another studio, we have a Pro Tools rig.
Okay.
So our assistant actually take the Pro Tools session, create stems in a way that usually is my workflow, and I have a system in place. I usually work with stems. So we create our own stems.
Okay.
In that case. On dance music, different. We do, we ask for stems.
Oh, okay. So do you find, are you ever going back to your clients and asking to explain maybe some of the chain, if maybe they've, I don't know, maybe they've overdone something and you have to get them to pull back. Usually, a wry smile. I like that.
Yeah, usually that's my question. So usually on big mixes or like albums, I like to do like a little chat, 30 minutes to understand what's going on.
Right.
Most cases is, don't worry about the rough, sounds bad, do whatever you want. And say, okay, you mean that you want to follow the rough. So it's like, no. Like they tell you, yeah, don't worry about what I did, but what you did, there is a purpose. So what I usually do, on main instrument, lead vocal, lead synth, send me the dry and the wet.
Right.
To me, the wet is a reference for my dry. So I want to hear what is the tone of the vocal that you like, that you try to achieve and do it. And then I'm going to redo it in my way, with your vision and
Right.
my tone. So essentially, and I find myself that 90% of the time they over mix the rough mix, if it makes
Sure.
sense. They mix too much, and it
Yeah.
tends to kill dynamics way too soon. So for me, having like a dry and wet of the main lead instrument, so again, vocal, if there's an important guitar, important synth, and a bass, that makes kind of the main element of the track, I want to have the dry and the wet, so I can kind of like keep both and play A and B, and get my sound, respect his vision.
That's great. I love you said that, because that was the answer I gave. I mean, because I think that makes the most amount of sense, doesn't it? That you've got their original source material, but then you've got their vision. And sometimes their vision probably is like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But
and also there's also mixing their production decision. They other than respect, I feel they make the song. On dance music, there's a certain mixing ideas that are maybe technically not perfect, but they have the right feel and the right vibe.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's very interesting. And of course, like you're saying with production, if they recorded or worked on, I don't know, a synth pad first,
Yeah.
The decisions they made on that affected the next thing that they added.
100%.
And I think this is something that gets a little lost sometimes, is it's not about, like you're saying, throwing the baby out with the bathwater and just starting from scratch.
Exactly.
You need to relate and understand what they did so you can make it even better still.
That's true. And also, I can learn to go on stages when I send the mix back to the producer, which is I send you a mix, answer those 3 questions. How you feel about priority in the mix, which is drums with synth and vocal. Don't worry about the reverb. Don't worry about the little details. Tell me if you feel the synth and the drums and the vocal, they're sitting properly on top of each other. Because I noticed the interesting thing is, hey, the hi-hat, it's not bright enough. And I say, no, maybe it's not loud enough.
Right.
So when I ask you, tell me how you feel between those 3 or 4 priority. When they give me that feedback back, it's like, hey, can you bring all the synth up a little bit? Great. That's like the type of feedback that I'm looking for. And then I go, when I mix is finished, it's about, tell me how you feel about the reverb. But it's kind of like a psychological relationship sometimes.
Right. No, it makes perfect sense, because you want to get inside of their heads.
Exactly.
And so having those discussions will open up a lot of information that will really help you. So I have technical questions.
Yeah.
What kind of levels are you mixing at? Are you finding
90 dB.
90 dB is your preferred?
Yeah. I try to, I get a little bit excitement when I'm mixing drum and bass and just want to feel it, but I try to keep consistent in a way that I can physically talk with somebody without turning the music up and down. If I can do that, to me it's kind of like the right level. I can just work and talk if I need to. Also, what I usually do when I go into vocal, I like to take breaks in a strategic way. I mix all the song the way up, like up, down. So I do my drum, the bass, the synth, the effects, and the vocal. My longest break is before the vocals. I feel it kind of like I get tired and I risk to make decision on vocals. So I like to take breaks. So usually after dinner, vocal. If I can, the next day in the morning, vocals. And I think it just come out better. We always make fun of like people that send a track end of the night to friends and producers, say, man, check my mix. And they wake up in the morning, they listen, and they say, oh, I sent the wrong version. There was the older version. And they delete right away from Dropbox. Like that kind of scenario. But because you generally believe you did a good job, you're just getting tired. So.
Yeah, Jim Scott always says to me, the last thing you mix, it's always going to be the loudest thing in the mix.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, go back next morning and like, the vocal's too loud.
You did it right away.
Yeah. So give us a little bit more, we've obviously described, you're talking about the dangerous A to Ds, D to As there.
Right.
I suppose, let's keep on that side then.
Sure.
So let's go down.
Absolutely.
What do you have next here? You have the Better Maker.
Right. So the way it works, so first of all, the 2 converts, they have different purposes.
Okay.
One convert is a monitoring converter. So on my console, I do the rough, the mix, the reference, and the post-conversion. The post-conversion is very important for me. So I capture my mix, I put plugin, I want to be able to monitor and go before and after conversion.
Oh, nice.
So 8 channels, they're dedicated to that. 8 channels, they're for summing purpose on synth. I use a Mastering, it's kind of an amplifier, it has no sound. I just want to use that it's practical to do solo on stems. So the second one is there. And I have a Lynx Aurora sitting in the back of the console for one purpose, drums summing. So that length only does drums.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it has a certain tone, which is not super hi-fi, but it's kind of like rock and roll. And
no, I used to have some. I love them.
And then goes on drum summing, and so that's kind of like the go-to system. When I hit that, I usually have 2 insert, which is compression EQ.
Yep.
The compression essentially goes to the liaison. The liaison, it gave me so many options. So I have a custom SSL 4000 bus compressor with a bunch of interesting things, like 3 different transformer on the way out. And I have like sidechain up to like 400 and the custom sidechain too, plus external input sidechain. So, and I also have the dangerous compressor. Usually what I do, I have 2 compressor on my stereo bus from the beginning. The dangerous compressor only does mid-range compression. I have an EQ, I shave everything under 1,000, everything over 7K to make sure the mid-range is always up front. And I do a very light, very smooth, transparent compression. The SSL, it does literally the opposite, pumping and moving a couple of dBs. I have an internal parallel to do that.
Oh, nice. So you got a wet dry.
Yeah, wet dry.
That's huge.
Yeah, on the mix, I can transform and post parallel.
I mean, this section here is like everything you want on your SSL bus compressor.
Exactly. That's anything you don't have. So that's awesome. Then I have a very old 1978 Neumann broadcasting 491A EQ. There are 4. Gorgeous. And I use 2 on my synth and 2 on my drums. So the liaison has 6 insert that goes on the stereo bus on my console, 6 that goes on my drum bus. That way I can also do interesting things like SSL compressor just on my drums and the dangerous in the entire stereo bus.
Oh, that's so cool.
Thank you.
I love this you know, honestly, just the way you described it, made perfect sense from beginning to end. The way that you route everything and the decisions you've made. I mean, this is presumably quite a few years of you thinking about how you want
think
this
about
to be.
17 because initially was console on the side, rack on the side. So I kind of like tweak, and I think in the past 4 years that became my go-to, my thing. And I do in a way almost when you drive a car stick, the way we do in Europe, that you can drive stick and talk with somebody. You don't even think you're going second, third. You can just talk and do it. And I do the same here. I feel sometimes like what I just did. I don't just like my hands goes there, do this, do that. It's just like the second nature approach on gear is very, very important.
Yeah, that's absolutely amazing. So I suppose the question is because you're making so many great decisions here on your mix, are you treating the mastering process as a separate thing, or are you?
Right. It's a great question.
Okay.
So because my hybrid approach, I find myself cover different position. So when I mix the record, my goal is to take before mastering. The mastering is just purely levels. So I try to finish my mix. I clip my mixes pretty much all the time. You know, kind of try to do it in a musical way. When I clip and do automation with VCA out of my DAW, I clip my we call drop. It's kind of the chorus, and I lower my verses. So I kind of like do things that mastering is challenging because now when you get my mix, if you're a mastering engineer, so what's going on right now? This track is clipping on purpose. On one part, it's very dynamic on others. So when I'm not in charge to do the final stage of mastering, I give something that I wish the only things to do is raise the level and make sure they blend with the rest of the album, if it's an album. So little correction. When I finalize my mastering is literally level. So I don't do anything. If I do an EP, in case of recently I did this Diplo EP where different tracks produced in different studios, and I did a little bit of post-mastering, means I reach the level that I want, and then I open a new session with a purpose to make sure that every track like is cohesive and sit in the same space.
Sure.
That was like very simple, like 2 dB over like 10K down, and just make sure that every track just like as a space. When you put on Spotify, you go through the tracks, they make sense.
Feels like a whole. Yeah.
But it's just kind of like an organic approach. And there's amazing engineers that do just mastering that I respect so much. When I do mixes and part of an album, we did in the past so many times, and it goes those ends, I'm actually very pleased. I know they're going to do a good job on my material.
But I understand what you're talking about because you're mixing with dynamics in mind, and the last thing you want to do is have somebody master shave off your chorus to bring your verse up, so suddenly everything's like this,
right?
And the chorus actually starts to sound smaller than the verse.
Exactly. And this happened, unfortunately, a lot in the past. On dance music, we have another problem working with dance labels. Producer on dance music, they make decision on the production that with mastering, you can really change the feel of the track. Perfect example is E note, C note, everything very low on the first octave. They do on purpose this very like crazy loud, like a lot on trap music, where that's the actual production work. So the mastering is like, what's going on? Like there's like 34 hertz, like slam so loud, and just let's pull it down. Yes, technically, but not as an intention of the producer.
Sure.
So for that case, I do a little bit of kind of like a quality control as far as what is coming out. And sometimes, most cases, I'm the master engineer as well. That's easier. But when I'm not, I communicate with the master engineer a lot. Sure. How about like the vision of the mix and everything?
That's great. But I can imagine that you're getting the majority of the mastering when you're mixing. Yeah. Because it makes sense. It's either that or you've got to have a mastering engineer who gets exactly what you do.
That's true. Absolutely true. Yeah. This is another point, Warren, that a lot of new mixes, they're minimal production. It's a borderline doing like a stem mastering, like even if it's a mix. Like the number of stems sometimes like 12. That's the song.
Yeah.
So and then actually well produced. So my approach is like, okay, I need to think like in a hybrid mode right now. So I'm mixing, thinking as a mastering guy. Means like I'm not gonna reinvent his mixing decision. I'm gonna just enhance and just get it to the final stage.
I suppose for me on a business level, it's interesting because because mastering engineers are increasingly asking for stems.
Yeah.
And yes, that can be 3 elements. It could be like music, maybe percussion, maybe vocals. I don't know. It could then, of course, like you're saying, it could be 12. It could be even more. How do you differentiate? If somebody comes to you and says, I need you to master, that you know that you're going to need stems to make it great.
Right.
How do you, frankly, a business way, what do you do? Do you come back to them and say, this is my hourly?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Well, it's going to take me 5 hours to make this great.
That's a great point. Well, the good news is I'm always the good guy. Right. And Jacob is the bad guy, but Jacob is so good, and he is able to kind of translate the thing. So what we try to explain is what level. So if you come to us, you already commit to the best possible quality.
Sure.
And we want to make sure that it's, to be fair, it's unfair, kind of like to take something till the end, knowing that we can do better. So we say, listen, to be fair, to really take to the best quality, we want to do this. For example, on mastering, one typical thing is vocals separated. Like we got good master, but if we apply everything without having control of the vocal, then everything's a little bit imbalanced. So the business side, answer your question, it's me communicating with the staff and Jacob and explain what's going on and what I think I need to do, and you deal with, and I let them.
Well, I think people come to you and they want the best results, and if that means that you need to basically essentially remix it to a certain extent, I mean, that's what you do. You make it great.
Yeah, and the things we call on dance music is like additional production. Essentially means your mix is, the production is fantastic. The kick is so off, and the snare is so off. You just need a new kick. Because you go crazy to EQ and a kick. Just make a new one. There's a famous story. I take a minute. You're gonna like this.
Okay.
I did a very old Snoop Dogg project when he changed his name to Snoop Lion. He did a reggae project. I was like struggling to make this song sound good, and replaced the kick drum. And then I sent. They approved the mix. And say, by the way, good job on the kick. I didn't say I actually changed it. It's like, you did a good mix. So I just changed the kick. I just changed the kick drum and make sure the envelope was there, the note was the same, but the quality. So that's part of the mix.
Yeah. You do what you have to do to make it great. Exactly. I've always respected that. And I noticed as I was coming up over here, those are the guys that you gravitated towards. The guys that just made it better. They didn't come back and point fingers and humiliate each other. No. They just made it better.
It's better.
It's a good message to tell people that are coming up here that that's really your job. I mean, I don't know about you. I've been hired as an engineer 100 times and ended up producing the record.
Of course.
You get asked to master and you end up doing some remixing.
Exactly.
But that's why people come to you, because they want things to be great.
Exactly. And ultimately, one thing is we always like make sure that this music will stay for life, forever, online. And that's part of history of music, the part of your name attached to this, part of my name attached to this. So I want to just be proud that, not say, I wish we can do that. No, we just get it done right.
Did it right. Wonderful. Awesome. This is amazing. Anything else you want to tell us about on the gear before we wrap up? Because we've done speakers, we've done some stuff here.
Right. Well, the overall, what I'm extremely proud, which is a new baby, is our custom mid-side EQ.
Yeah.
So the engineer name is Argentinian, is from Rome. I'm Italian myself.
Yeah.
And Livio Argentini is a genius. It's 82 years old. He did the best early 60s and early 70s broadcasting EQ in Italy, and just fall in love. Essentially, this is literally sometimes my only EQ beside the Bax EQ, which is my final stage, where I do everything. The way it's as solo on bands, individual bands solo, as insane.
That's amazing.
Mid-side insert. I can insert another piece of gear on the mid-side portion of this EQ. I mean, I just fall in love again.
It looks gorgeous.
And as a Bax EQ, as a Bax portion EQ, you can work pre-post the parametric EQ with different band. It's just unbelievable. So,
and what's his name again?
Livio Argentini. Livio Argentini, but this is a Studio DMI custom EQ.
Yep.
And we might consider to do an actual commercial line of this to maybe 10. The thing is, I don't know, they can cost like $15,000, $20,000 because there's so much stuff.
Yeah.
The transformer is handmade by Livio.
Right.
So it's ridiculous. So anyway, I'm extremely proud of this. Like, I'm proud of the entire studio. Well, thanks to be here.
Thank you ever so much, Luca. It's incredible. Thank you. Hi, everybody. We are at Studio DMI, and this is your opening night.
Yeah, this is the big day. It's our grand opening.
It's pretty amazing because it's about half an hour before it opens, but there's already a line of people, so that's always a good sign.
It's a good sign, absolutely. And we had so many RSVPs, and we're so happy that people are coming out to support us because, up until now, we didn't have this type of space. So the way we work was kind of in a bat cave. We didn't really want people to come see us because we had the equipment, of course, but everything around it wasn't quite as luxurious and up to the same level of what our work was.
Yeah. Well, we just spent some time with Luca, which was absolutely incredible. That guy is sharp.
He is so passionate about music. I've been working with Luca for 28 years. So we started doing music when we were just artists. And so we've kind of grown up together. And he is just so passionate about music, he devours it. So he's always looking to be better. And one thing that I really like about Luca is his openness. He's so willing to share. And he wants everybody to be able to make music better.
Oh no, there was like probably 5 or 6 gems in there of information.
Absolutely.
That honestly I learned.
That's awesome.
And discussion points that I get all the time from people asking about like how to work with individual DAWs, how everybody prefers this DAW over that one, and he answered like all of those questions.
Yeah.
Let alone like talking about the low end, about how he keeps it mono below 300 hertz. I mean, this is stuff that you'd have to pay to go to school to learn.
I agree with that. In our philosophy, like Studio DMI is actually, Luca's Italian. I lived in Italy for a long time. So the word studio isn't really a studio as in a space. It's the Italian word studiare. So it's the study of digital music innovation.
Beautiful.
So it's being innovative and making better music. And we've literally traveled the globe. We've done workshops in China. We've done workshops all throughout Europe. We even partnered and created another entity that's called the Alliance, and we're doing the Alliance Music Academy that has a full 18-month course, so we can continue to share with people, our philosophy on how to make music.
Oh, I want to know more about that. We should definitely talk about that.
Awesome.
That's amazing. I love all of that stuff. For me, being a thought leader is what it's all about. Being somebody that we can trust. There's lots of people, that want to give away information, but Luca's giving it away so freely. That's so important because everybody complains about the music industry. It's not what it was. It's not what it is. Yeah, it's not what it was. It's better in so many ways. It's kicking down doors and bringing in so many refreshing new ways of doing things, and I love it. There was a time when I used to go and talk to a mixing engineer or who was mixing my album, and they would cover the console. I've seen people turn off the screen on playbacks. It's like, how does that help? We want to bring more people into our industry and share
Absolutely.
information.
And I think it's not just I mean, it's not just knowing what piece of equipment to use, but it's knowing when to use it.
Yes.
And then how to use it and how to apply it. And I think that's something that is very personal. So they can't take that away from you. And that's something that Luca has that's very strong. And our relationship, because like I said, we've been together a long time, and even here at Studio DMI, we're like two sides of one brain. So he does all the creative and artistic things, and I handle all the business and number things. And that just works for us, right? Because he doesn't have to be weighed down with, who gets what invoice, what are the prices, what are these things, how do I do this? And I, of course, don't know how to do anything that he knows how to do. So it just works really well.
That's amazing. Well, we're just talking about that philosophy because, in a lot of the mixing that he's doing, he's also mastering the tracks. But then, of course, people are probably coming to him, oh, can you just master or can you just mix? And he's able, like he says, to educate people, but also like get inside their brains and communicate. And that's something that I always try to bring across. It's like, it's not adversarial. We're all here to work with each other. Help each other out to get an amazing result. And if you're one cog in that, in that huge wheel, just make it so that you're there helping to get great music made.
Absolutely. And that raises the bar for all of us, right?
Yep.
So when you start to share and you start to work with other people and they do better, that makes you just do even better. It just raises the bar for everybody.
It's amazing. And it's a great thing to help because I get asked all the time, how do I make this better? How do I make that better? And I'm always like, collaboration is key. Get in there,
Absolutely.
Work with others. I mean, I can come up with amazing ideas on my own sometimes. Sometimes, but when I'm in the room with another artist doing stuff, that's when it just goes through the roof.
Absolutely, you feed off each other.
Yeah, absolutely. So you created an amazing environment for that. It's so
Absolutely.
great to land here first thing in the morning, come straight here and just feel an incredible energy.
Thank you. And that's something that we're really focused on because we want it to be. A lot of times people get lost, so it's music business, and it's the music and the creative side, and then it's the business side. And you have a lot of great talent that starve and end up doing an entirely different job because they don't understand the business side. Right. That's once again why I think that our combination works so well. And we have a team on the creative side and we have a team on the business side. And what we wanted to create here is to reflect the same thing. When you come through our facility, you have one side that has all the studios and all the creative portions on it. And then you have another side that has the conference rooms, the business rooms, and the business side and the staff is working on it. And we kind of split that in the middle. It's like two sides of a brain, right? It's like the left side and the right side of a brain. And that's kind of what we wanted to create here. So we want a great place for an artist to come, and we're working with Focal. We have a really strong relationship with them. Yep. They really believe in us, and we're proud to be able to work together with them. Zayor did the same thing. Like even this table, this is the only table like this of its kind in the world ever. This is the first one they've ever built, and they built it because we asked for this crazy design. And they're like, okay, we think we can do that, but should it really be that big? Yes, it has to be that big.
I think the thing you're touching on as well, I think is really important for everybody watching this. People come to me, they say, can you, record, produce, mix, whatever it is. And then they immediately say, how can I promote my music? And I realize now that we have a responsibility because they're paying us to do a job.
Right.
But they're sort of a little lost. And we can all make amazing records and put them out, but they'll just be in isolation. I mean, there's tons of amazing undiscovered music.
Absolutely.
So it's up to us to help in all kinds of ways. And I can hear that from what you're talking about, that you understand that. An artist is going to come to you and say, here's my music. And it's not just like taking the check, doing a good job and pushing them away again. We realize that we have a responsibility now to help them above and beyond. And because they're looking for that, because they might be in Wisconsin or something, or some random country where there's no infrastructure whatsoever, but they're talented.
Absolutely. One thing I've noticed is that when you get into the professional sector, then you get around a lot of people that all like music, and we all talk the same thing. When you're not at that level yet and you're trying to get there, you'll find that your group of friends, that guy likes soccer, that guy likes video games, that guy likes driving motorbikes real fast. You're the only dude, you're the anomaly in the group that does music. Your friends don't understand that you took 18 hours to try to get a kick drum right.
Yeah.
They're like, why would you do that? Just do this. And you don't have anybody to talk to and share that experience with. So we went, every step and everything that we do is to look at how do we make music better? That's our motto, right? Make music better. When I had so many young producers come to me and go, hey, I need a manager because I need bookings. I'm like, well, the manager doesn't get you bookings. That's an agent. You're looking in the wrong place for the wrong thing. So we created a thing called the Alliance, the Music Alliance, which is a membership group that you can sign up to. It can go anywhere from free. We have a free stage, and it goes all the way up to, I think, about a $50 a month stage. That you get everything, you get a community that you can start talking to, bouncing ideas off of, talking about some of the business elements that you need, talking about plugins, different ways of working, and being able just to communicate in this little space of like-minded people that love music and have that passion. And I think that is, once again, a way that we try to do something more. Then to go way out, we created a foundation called the B Sharp Music Foundation that we strongly support, where we're just trying to get music in front of young kids, because most of the high school programs don't have anything there for electronic music. They may have a band and they may teach you how to play a recorder, but they don't really teach you this, which is kind of a new wave of being able to produce on your computer. And so we're even trying to do that, and we're using B Sharp, which is actually a 501c3, to be able to go to high schools and help high schoolers and expose them to this industry.
That's incredible. I love that. That's really good, and that means a lot. We have kids, and if you live in a really nice area and you can afford it, life is great. But most people can't afford to give their kids that kind of education, and I've seen a lot of people do this, and it's really beautiful that you do that.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's really important. I was blessed of my age group growing up in England. We had music classes, we did everything. And it was just a regular public school. But I was blessed. But I hear from everybody now that is an anomaly. It's rare.
Yeah.
And wow, I mean, you read these studies about aging, about people with Alzheimer's. They teach them music.
Absolutely.
Because it makes the brain work. It keeps it alive. It keeps it vibrant. And it's the thing that connects us all. Math and music. Sure. I like this.
Absolutely. And then especially in our industry and what we do. Because it's like, when I actually placed a program here at Faith Lutheran, it's a close by school, that I placed a program that's 85 courses, 85 minutes long. So it's a full year, and they can get a credit for it. And when I was talking to the CEO of that company, and I was just telling him, how we work with music and how we work with computers and how we have to know the legal end of things and publishing and all this, and he was like, man, this should be something that we're teaching in our school. Where can I see a class like this? And I told him absolutely nowhere, because it's not provided at a high school level anywhere. So, I mean, as Studio DMI, I take it, studio, that Italian word, the study of digital music innovation, I take it literal. I mean, it's really study on how to help people make music better, and anything that's missing, let's make it. That's why we got involved in making plugins and other things like that. We had an idea of how to make it better. So, hey, why don't we do it this way? And we've been fairly successful at it.
Well, congratulations. Thank you for having us here.
No, thank you for coming. You're always welcome.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you.
All right, Scott, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm rather marvelous. Thank you for having us here at DMI.
It's great to have you.
What do you call your room?
It's Studio D.
D. So can you give us a little bit of a synopsis on your setup here?
I can. So Studio I is more of a full analog setup. I tend to work more in the box. I do have a couple pieces of gear that I kind of my go-to that I can't really get the same thing out of plugins sometimes. So it's a much more simple setup. Have dangerous conversion over here, convert 8s, and the convert AD. And then the liaison is kind of like my patch bay for the inserts that I do have, which over here have dangerous compressor, P3S, and back EQ, and then my favorite thing in the world, the H3000.
I love the H3000. Yes. I have one too. What are you using your H3000
on? Mostly vocals. I do, though, use it on bass lines actually a lot to just add a tiny bit of life that doesn't exist in a lot of digital synth basses.
Like what are you doing? Like maybe a little bit of thickening, detuning?
I actually have this preset here that I have here almost all the time called Lush Life.
Lush Life.
And it's a slightly edited one from the one that comes on the unit.
Right.
It's a little tiny bit of a chorus, a little bit of a reverb, super short.
Nice.
So I blend that in maybe 4 or 5%, print it back. Just adds a nice lush life to the bass. Yeah,
life. What about vocals? What are you usually using on the H3000?
Actually, that a lot.
Yep.
And then there's a preset in here called It's like Jerry Was a Race Car Driver, the Primus song. And I use a couple variations of that. It's almost like 2 delays, kind of like there's a dotted quarter and then like an eighth or something. And the way they play off each other is just really nice.
I've never used that. Eric, make a note of that. Make a note of that. I'm going to try that out. That's amazing. So, what are your sort of go-to stuff? Because I see you've got the Dangerous here and you have the Liaison. So, Luca was saying that he's going in and out, like selecting stuff because he's mastering as well as mixing. Yes. Are you doing the same kind of stuff?
I am. I used to work full analog in there.
Okay.
And I kind of changed my workflow about a year ago because I was starting to use the analog gear as like a crutch. Right. And I wasn't thinking enough about the work. So I started working more in the box. So here I have like the essential analog gear to get what I still want out of it without being overwhelmed by too many choices. So when I'm going out, I either have the choice to go out 4 outputs, separate like drums and bass, synths, vocals, and then have it summed back in. Or most of the time just working in the box. So everything going to buses in the box and then going out 1 stereo track. Compressor, little EQ, and then back in the AD Plus from Dangerous, the X-Former on there is like a little bit of kind of extra excitement at the end.
Great.
Gives it a little bit of that like analog beef kind of thing.
Nice.
Which just adds a little bit more so it's not full in the box. But my workflow generally is 99% in the box.
So speaking of that, I notice you have an Apollo. So are you use the new X? So are you using a lot of UAD plugins?
I do. I use a lot of UAD and a lot of Acoustica plugins.
I've not yet to discover Acoustica, but I hear lots of great things.
Yes, the emulations that's a big reason why I went in the box, because the sound of a lot of the plugins rivals the gear that we actually have. The quality is the same, and it's much easier to recall. So I don't have to go back to 24 knobs. And I've found that for me, not having to overthink because of that helps the work, and the final product is actually a lot better. So yeah, we have the Apollo, which we're using for recording. We have a couple other preamps, but then that's just for like the clean, zero latency, and obviously for the UAD plugins.
Which are fantastic as well.
Yes.
What is your DAW of choice?
Studio One, actually. I've been a Logic user for 10 years. I still use that for personal stuff of mine, but for work, when I'm sitting here, my mindset is Studio One. Mixing, mastering, vocal recording.
Great. So you're both on Studio One, and you both came from
Logic?
Logic?
At the same time, yeah.
Oh, you did?
We decided about 3 years ago just to try it out, and ended up, the end of the week, we were fully comfortable, so we just stuck with it.
Did you, I know I'm not a Studio One user, but I heard a couple of people say what they liked about it is you can customize the shortcuts.
Yes. So when we started working, we actually went to it comes with Logic presets. And then from there, we just kind of changed whatever else we wanted to do. So there was no learning time getting used to the feel of it.
That's really smart.
And there's the things about Pro Tools that I understand, but I don't get Pro Tools and Ableton, but there's a lot of pieces from like Cubase, Ableton, Pro Tools, Logic kind of put together. So it's very comfortable to use. Especially coming from Logic all that time, I didn't feel like I was switching. It was just, had some different tools that maybe I was missing and some new stuff I didn't know I was missing.
Right, that's fantastic. Tell us a little bit about the speakers. I notice you both have a similar setup, so.
Yes, we have the Focal Trio11s, and then a Trio, the Sub 6 on the floor.
Oh, you have a sub down there.
Yes, 1 sub in each room. We used to have 2, and we found that when we got here, both rooms worked better with just the sub in the middle.
Right.
It was tighter. There was no kind of like looseness of the sub. It was immediately just perfect.
Right.
And then I have the Shape 40s here as my second monitors, which amazingly I forget I'm listening to sometimes because they sound so good. I realize 20 minutes in that I'm not actually listening to the trios.
I think using Focals myself as well, I think the characteristic of Focals that I like is the fact they're not fatiguing. Yes,
I have had many a 80 or 90 hour week where I get to the end of it and I'm not tired. Like I could still keep working. And that's a big thing that, again, helps with the workflow. I'm not distracted by the analog gear when I don't need it. And I'm not, by the end of the day, wishing I had done something else or taken more breaks or listened quieter. It's I don't listen very loud, but a lot of other speakers still very fatiguing, end up getting a headache, can't concentrate on the work. So they're huge. They can go really loud if you need to impress the client. They want to hear the song really loud. And even at that, they don't hurt. They're not tiring at the end of a long session where the artist wants it super loud. So.
I was saying to Luca, I think we got it on camera, so I'll repeat myself, but I had 3 sets of speakers and I flattened them all out with software. And even though they read the same, they still sounded sweeter on the high end. There's just something special about, I'm not an expert, but on the tweeters, which is just really great.
Yes, that's the above like 10K is the thing I noticed the most, that I don't think about what's happening there. I can just work with it and make something sound as good as possible without trying to interpret what I'm hearing from the tweeters.
Also, the music these days is very demanding in the high end. It didn't used to be. It was like everybody loved rock and roll to be splashy and cymbals like distorted and overly compressed. Now that stuff doesn't translate. If I listen to a record from like 98, not all of them, but some of them, all I hear is
Yeah. So I spend a lot of time listening to that.
Yeah.
And that's especially with a lot of cheap synths or people using process samples, reprocessing, then they want it mixed. And so I'm trying to deal with like 5 layers of processing, and the top end is phasey and it feels broken. At least listening on these, I can really concentrate on what I'm hearing, and I'm not getting tired 10 minutes in making bad decisions.
Right.
It's by far my favorite speakers.
Great. Well, that's fantastic to hear. So what else can you tell us about the room? We've been down a few things here. I'd like to talk about this because I actually never used one of these dangerous compressors. Is that your bus compressor?
It is. Both studios, we have that as the first insert on the chain.
Great.
It's not groovy, it's not musical, but it is extremely transparent. And you can kind of just, 5 seconds, boom, it sounds good. Right. Not constantly going back, changing settings, or trying to find something that works. So this is super transparent, no color, no weird pumping, and then I have the P3S that's more creative. I can get more musical with it.
Tell me about this. I don't know this at all.
It's actually, Luca used to use it for several years, and then he got a couple different things. So honestly, I don't know a lot about it, and I kind of want to keep it that way because I like the way it sounds, and I don't want to think too much about what it's doing. But it does have this output transformer that adds a little bit of a different color.
Right.
It's got full auto mode, or you can have manual attack and release, feedback or feed forward. So it's pretty versatile. And again, I don't know a lot about it, but what I know is when I use it, it sounds amazing, and paired with this.
Right, so you're pairing it.
Very transparent glue, and then I can kind of like make something cool happen with the compression after that. That's what I like about those two.
That's fantastic. And then the back EQ, this is your master EQ?
Yeah, and again with the Acoustica and UAD plugins, I'll use a lot of the Millennia EQ, or Acoustica has a couple plugins. Emerald, which is an old mastering EQ from Italy. I use those a lot to really get like the color that I want. And then this is at the end when I might think I'm done, song is finished, but when I go through it, might need just a dB or two, kind of bump up the top and bottom. And
are you doing a similar thing to Luca, about 300 mono and then kind of spreading it out?
Yeah, it's interesting. We kind of work with the same philosophy in mind, but Luca tends to go more aggressive, and I come from a metal background, so I kind of want things a little like
metal. What?
I tend to go for a little bit darker and a little bit. I like the width and the low mids more. I also, at that, you can't push things.
This is very interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to keep pushing on this. This is good because I get this crossover. I've got a crossover audience of guys that are rock and then guys that obviously aren't. They're either doing pop or dance or whatever.
Yeah.
And this is the discussion because for me, if I want to create width in rock mixes, I have to be really careful, 100, 150 and below, because then the guitars don't sound hard left and hard right.
Kind of blur.
They sort of blur in the middle. However, when you're talking about metal, and this is why I'm going to push you on the answer, that's tough because metal guitars are tuned to like low Cs.
Yes.
Sometimes even Bs. I've even heard As down there. So
I have an 8-string, and so it's a full octave below standard tuning, so it's totally different.
So how are you thinking then in that world? Because I've never had the opportunity to ask somebody this.
It's one of the. I went from metal to like dubstep and drum and bass, so it was kind of like going from the rock world metal to the EDM world with the metal of that.
Sure.
So I started thinking about that the same way, where people want things super loud. So sometimes that does have to be narrowed up because it just won't work if 100 hertz is super wide. But I try to keep things, have a discussion with the client first, see if they want to keep it a little more dynamic and get more width and substance out of the song, rather than just pushing it as hard as possible.
Right.
Sometimes that gets me in a little trouble because people want it super loud.
Right.
So then I have to kind of rethink about that. But my philosophy first is I want to feel that in the electronic world like I know what I want in the metal world. And I do a lot of more like poppy, trap, pop, future-based kind of stuff where that doesn't necessarily translate.
Sure.
But I'm still thinking about that the same. I'll still think about the pads or whatever happens to be lower if there's guitars. I don't want the song super loud and mono in the low end. So there's a lot of places Luca and I kind of go the same direction. We think about it the same, which is why we've worked so closely together for so long. But I think the low mids, we kind of go opposite directions, which is interesting.
So yeah, he goes right up to 300 mono.
Yeah.
And then are you more like 80, 100 and then start coming out?
I would say like 80 to 120 is usually about like 120 is about as high as I want to go with that. Because then I start to just feel like I'm missing too much of the song.
Right.
So I'll 2 dB lower on the RMS, but if I can have it wider in the low mids, so I don't just have a bunch of top end bouncing around, that's what I'm going for.
That's cool. It's really interesting to know because, like I say, I get asked that question all the time, and I get it because if I want to place my guitars or anything high mid, and I want it to definitely feel left and definitely feel right, 300's tough.
Yeah.
That's a point where So I understand his philosophy, but I also relate to yours.
Yeah.
Because you need that huge low guitar end. So how did you do a transition from rock and metal into this?
About 2009, actually go back, 2006, my parents got an iMac, and so I was like, I'm going to start making music, because I had played drums and guitar for years before that, but I wanted to make electronic music. So I started making really just kind of terrible, dark, industrial, techno kind of stuff. And I always would infuse the metal aspect into it. I'd play guitar on the songs, and so I still thought about it the same way. And as I got more into it, I started producing seriously, started DJing. It just kind of, with dubstep and drum and bass, I could still get up there and headbang like crazy, and it felt like the same thing, just totally different type of music. And now for 10, 11 years, I've been pretty 99% on the electronic side. And it's brought a lot of different techniques that a lot of people I talk to in the same genres don't have, which I think is part of what makes me a little unique. I may not be the best at everything, but I have a different perspective that brings a slightly different sound, and especially if you're going to let me be creative with your song, I can bring something different to it because I have each side of that. And I've done on projects like Lean On, some of the Major Lazer stuff, Benny Benassi. Like, the more you want it clean, it's a very specific thing they're going for. But I have this other knowledge I can bring into that a lot of people doing that don't necessarily have.
It was interesting. I was talking to a mixer years and years ago, and he was working with Rob Cavallo, and Rob Cavallo had said he brought a Green Day in and he brought Jewel in, and he said, I want the excitement of Green Day in Jewel. And like the mixer said to me, he goes, that was a strange thing to say, but I was like, I understand.
I get it. Yeah,
I get
makes sense.
And I think that you're saying the same thing. It's like, I mean, look, you go back to like Prodigy first coming over here in the early 90s. I mean, like Firestarter, mid 90s? I mean, that might as well be metal. It was like...
That album and Junkie XL are the two things that got me into electronic music.
Yeah.
So I still, that's like the transition that I still try to bring that kind of vibe.
Yeah.
And I love doing that. I love combining even on the poppiest of songs, trying to bring that energy, because it doesn't need to be cold and lifeless and digital.
Well, Tom's like a shredding guitar player as well.
Yeah,
he comes from that. He used to be in a King Crimson covers band in the 80s. So like, awesome. You know, he's like, and then he creates this insane music. Yeah.
No idea.
Yeah. Cool. But now it makes sense, doesn't it?
It
now
does. It makes a lot more sense, yeah.
Well, fantastic. I'm loving this. Before we get wrapped up, I see some other hardware down here. What's this stuff down here?
So we've got a couple mic pre's, Phoenix and the API.
Great.
And then Tubus, which is actually a part of this chain. Mm-hmm. There's just too many things, not enough space right now. So I'm going to work out the workflow here.
Yep.
Old Alesis compressor gets that super aggressive.
Wow, 3630? It is?
Yes, it is.
What do you use that on?
Making really fun, pumpy, aggressive drums. Especially, you get like old Daft Punk sound, where it's just destroying the drums, but it makes a really interesting sound, especially blended in. How's
it got a bright blue faceplate? Was that just something you read?
That's the way it came. I think we got it on Reverb or eBay or something, and they had refaced it.
That's amazing.
So,
that's amazing. The 3630, I remember when that was new. That shows my age. And the thing about that is it's like kills the low end. It just sucks up the low end.
That's why I parallel it.
I was about to say you must parallel it. Yeah.
The Mazzolette console has the parallel insert, so I would put it on there, make it super aggressive, and it might only be like 20% in there, but you really feel it.
But that makes sense, because the last thing you need is more low end. You don't need something to go.
No.
You're going to have to try and EQ it out.
More groove, more excitement. The low end is always there.
Because that was the thing when I was a kid, that was all I could afford, was a 3630. And you put it on your mix and all the low end would just disappear. Yeah.
That's part of the charm.
No, I hear you. Cheap, and Alesis reverbs are very underrated. Those reverbs were amazing. And I like the fact you got the Phoenix stuff, because I think Robin makes great stuff.
Incredible. I just heard it for the first time yesterday. We just unboxed it, put it in there.
That's great.
I don't even know how to describe it. It was incredible.
It's very unique. When I first met him and I asked him, what is it, what is it, thinking that, he was going to say, oh, it's a 1073 mixed with a 3 blah, 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 and a transformer. He's like, we just made some really good mic pre's. And I like that, yeah.
I like unique stuff like that.
Yeah, it's very, very unique. And what else you got going on?
Monitor ST is just controlling this. So my Convert 8s, I have one that's strictly for monitoring.
Yeah.
So it's coming out of here. Speakers come from that, so I can switch the speakers on here. And then the second one goes to the liaison and out. And then this is also headphone amp.
Great.
D-Box from Dangerous.
Yep.
Talkback, and for people to walk in, you play on Bluetooth.
Perfect.
This, Luca used to use this a lot. It's in here now, so I can just experiment with it, basically. I haven't actually used it for anything yet, but I've heard what he's done with it, and we have two of them. Really, really cool. You can get really aggressive, super clean. Unfortunately, the Ramza is not in here. The power unit is. It's 4 channels from an old Ramza console that we had just put into a rack. Incredible on drums. Crazy aggressive top end, but it doesn't hurt.
I don't think people know Ramza in America. It was the Pro Audio side of Panasonic, I believe. Japanese company. I think so. I could be wrong, but I remember the Ramza consoles were unbelievable. They were so overly well engineered.
I mean, if they sound like that.
I'm glad to say I've not seen one out here, any kind of Ramza stuff, so it's amazing. And there's a Maya sound above.
Yeah. Again, we picked that up on eBay, and it's just kind of a cool, different thing to do some creative stuff with. Obviously not for mastering or anything, but I just like having these weird different pieces of gear just to play with, because that's what makes all of this fun. And then these are just 2 different versions of the same sampling unit.
Yep.
That I don't actually use for sampling. I just run the audio in and out on monitor mode, and you can just push it and get this really like heavily saturated, thick sound.
Oh wow!
So it's just kind of a cool little like almost saturation unit, basically.
Oh, that's great. Absolutely fantastic. And then what's the last thing here? This is just the monitor.
That's the monitor ST remote. So the monitoring level. The way the audio is coming in from the other room just now, it's on the aux input. This is my source switching, speaker switching. Super cool. Talk back. If you have more speakers, like if you're using a surround setup, set up for that already.
Fantastic.
Really cool.
Great. Well, thanks, Scott. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's great to have you.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a really beautiful studio.
Thank you.
Love
It's incredible. I walk in here every time now, and like I have to stop and just look around because I can't believe everything is interesting to look at.
How long did it take this to get built?
Structurally, or what's in here right now?
I suppose both.
It was a few months of construction getting to this point, and then up until 2 days ago at noon, there was nothing in here.
Wow.
We got all of the treatment up, but the desk, all the gear, cables, nothing until Wednesday at noon. We got it done last night.
Wow.
And so I've been walking in here and like,
It's
I
amazing.
can't believe it. It's finally here. This is like my space. I feel creative and inspired and
Congratulations.
excited.
Well, thank you ever so much for having us.
Thank you.
This is really bizarre. I've just started watching your,
You have?
yeah. Like I've only seen like 2 of them. I've only literally started getting into that type of thing. I've built a studio, at my house, but I don't know how to use it.
What have you got? Email me. We'll talk about
I've got loads of different stuff, loads of old analog gear. I've got a massive Moog. I've got
Well, you got the inside track now, so now you can email me.
all the gear, no idea.
I like that. All the gear,
that's what
no
I've got.
idea.
But I want to ask you,
Yeah.
in your videos, how come you have all these books? There's all these books
I just love it
in the background.
because I like to inspire.
And I said to one of my friends, I was like, I wonder if this is some sort of hidden message that you're watching here and you need to, start buying these books.
I think some of them are pretty important to me. I mean, there's obvious things like, there's a George Martin Beatles book. There's the Jeff Emerick kind of, his story of working with the Beatles and, of course, Paul McCartney and all the other things he did. But I think in general, they're all things that inspire me. You know what I mean? Just things I've read and I love, so I keep them up there. And there's a couple of CDs that I've worked on that somebody signed, like an Ace Frehley one. The thing is, I wasn't even a Kiss fan. Did you even know who Kiss were back in Belfast?
Of course, yeah.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, of course.
Ah, I see.
Yep.
And then I come to America and I do Aerosmith and Kiss.
That's
and
unbelievable.
So when did you move here?
2012, yeah. 2012.
Did you come over on a whim or did you come over with like a gig?
No, I've been DJing since 92, long time.
Yep.
I started coming to America in 1998. And the scene kind of threatened to kick off over here for a long time. And I think in America, people were just scared of the rave scene that we had in the UK.
Yeah.
American DJs weren't really playing in America. They were all playing in the UK. The scene started to try and bubble over a little bit here. But we would come over and there would be so many gigs that would just get cancelled from either the police or the fire marshals. They just didn't like the sound of this rave music coming back over to America. I mean, obviously, this is where the heart and soul of it was born, right? Even if you want to go back to, the disco era, and they got freaked out about that. Disco sucks, all that, when they started blowing up all the disco records and stuff. So there's always been some sort of fear factor around that type of music, whether it's just electronic based music. They've never kind of been really, really pushing it,
Sure. I wonder if for a time it's like they couldn't figure out how to monetize it to their own benefit.
And now they can. Now they can. It's crazy, Vegas is a different beast altogether.
I think it's amazing, even like for rock. I mean, this is the place to come. Because you go there, you go to a show, it's the best freaking venue you've ever been in your life. It's like they set it up so you can just come day after day after day and do a show. Everything runs like clockwork. I mean, Aerosmith are here at the moment, and it's like, it's so well run.
My wife, actually, I've got to take her to see them guys. So, like you say, I mean, all the shows, it's like clockwork, all the best gear.
Yep.
And that's the same for me as DJ. I've spent, before I came over here in 2012, I was doing maybe 15 to 20 flights a month.
Wow.
Going absolutely everywhere, and some clubs you'd turn up and you'd have half a turntable. Do you know what I mean? I'm being serious,
I
but
believe you.
Here, you say, I get out of my car, I go to work, Caesar's Palace, MGM, wherever, and you have the best gear there is, you know.
Yep.
So it's very lucky, and when I got the opportunity, didn't need to ask me twice, you know. So, yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
How are you enjoying the studio?
The studio, do you know what? I've actually just come straight from Wet Republic, the pool party that we do at MGM. I've just come straight here, so I've just got a tour, but wow, this place is
It's fantastic, isn't it?
insane, yeah.
And I love the whole ethics of this studio, because they want to just create something and help people. If you talk to Ronnie about it, he just wants to find artists, help develop them, point them in any direction they can, like help this, get involved in everything. And I think that's one thing that's been missing since, I suppose, the death of the old industry is the development.
Big time, you know, and Ronnie's a big, Ronnie's managed a lot of my stuff since I came over here. You know, when I came over here, I got to know Ronnie, and we worked together we still work together now. He still does a lot of my stuff, and that was a big thing that he's been wanting to get to this stage where, you know, he wanted to have like a kind of a little breeding ground, a little nurturing ground where he could have young people, you know, come in and meet some of the more established producers and stuff like that, and just give them a place where they could unleash their talent, so to speak, and find out new stuff. There's nothing like this, you know. There's nothing like this at all, and yeah, it's amazing that he's actually pulled it off.
I think it's incredible.
Insane. So.
And we just came here and everybody was just so positive and up, but not in an LA kind of like, I love you, man way. Yeah. Just like in a, look, we're actually doing this. We put this together.
Yeah, it's positive, you know, and it's real. And I think that goes back, you know, Luca. I mean, you've met Luca. So
sure.
Luca's
insanely talented.
I used to, when I grew up, before I started DJing, I used to get these cassette tapes given to me. And Luca was the DJ when he was called Digital Boy. It's really funny. And Ronnie was the MC. Now, I was listening to them guys when I was 12 years old, when they were playing in Ireland. No joke. It's incredible. And then I got to know them, like, wow, it's
amazing.
Yeah, you know, so to see what they've done. And it's great and inspiring for me, because obviously I come from the DJing side of thing, like Luca did as well, to see what he's done. And it's very inspiring to me to see that it can be done, you know.
And I think it's nice, and this is a big deal, because everything's moving so online and so digital. But then there's no humanity. There's no people like meeting and sharing ideas, and they're doing the opposite. They're already like in a world of digital, and now they're bringing it back to.
So important, you know. It's so important, you know, getting that kind of community together.
Yep, I agree.
And letting everybody kind of flourish and just hang around. So many ideas, you know. You'll know yourself. Just come about from just talking to people, hanging around, being in the right place at the right time within. You know, the space, you know, so it'll be interesting to see. You know, they've definitely got all the best gear to get kick-started, so hopefully there'll be a lot of good, you know, new music coming out here, and they'll give it to me first so that I can go play in the club.
I'm sure there will be. Thanks ever so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Fergie.
All the best, mate.
We're with Patrick from Acoustic. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
And you've got a light shining in your face. So look, we've been talking about all three of these rooms, and all three of these rooms have been treated by Acoustic. And what was fun was, and Scotty's got the headset on at the moment, is part of the whole process of doing this is using VR. So can you give us a little bit of a talk through on how you treated these rooms?
Sure, yeah. So all the rooms were designed by our team in Portugal. So we have a team of 4 people. There's 2 interior designers and there's 2 acousticians on staff. So essentially they send us the room plans. They tell us how large the rooms are. Because most of these rooms are rectangular and square, it's real easy to work on. We can mathematically calculate what the rooms are going to sound like to a pretty close accuracy degree. So from there, we actually take the rooms and model them into 3D. We don't do everything in VR yet, but that's something we're working towards, because we can do VR design using the software that Scott's actually inside of right now. And then outside of that, we take calculations on the room. And so right now, what Scott's actually seeing is concepts like reflections. And on the screen, you'll actually see, so we have absorption panels soaking up waves. And you'll see on the back wall, there's actually using a diffuser. And so all these rooms are actually designed in what's called an LEDE concept, which is live end, dead end. And so at the mix position, you'll notice on all 3 of these rooms, there's quite a bit more absorption, where in the back side of the room, we actually use diffusion. And that's because we don't want the rooms to be so dead that they're not workable. These guys are spending 8-9 hours in these rooms. Their entire careers are spent in these rooms. And rooms that are super dead, like we were talking about with the anechoic chamber, you just don't like living in those rooms. So we want the rooms that are really built for people so that they sound as good as possible, but also are pretty livable.
Great. Can you give us a little discussion about the different sort of acoustic treatment you've got going on?
Definitely. So in the room, we've got 3 main products that we use. So absorption, our most popular panel of these guys, it's called Cinema Round Premium. They're covered in a premium fabric. They're a round shape, so they're about a 3-inch absorber, and they're our most efficient product and our most popular. On the ceiling, you'll actually see a few of our iconic products, Wavewood, which are these guys with the slots here. And the Wavewood product is actually an absorber and a diffuser, so it's a hybrid product. Because we're using a reflective surface with the slots, those are actually calculated to allow us to give some high frequency reflections, but still absorb mid and lower frequencies.
Great.
The corners, we have the bass traps, which are Super Bass Extreme. Those are a membrane bass trap, so inside there's actually a box that has a few different layers of foam, some wood, so it actually is tuned to work between about 70 hertz and 100 hertz. And then outside of that, we also have diffusion products. So on the ceiling, we have our polystyrene diffusers, which are called Multifuser DC2. And then on the walls, we have our premium wood diffusers. And these guys are called Multifuser Wood 64.
Fantastic. Great. And you were saying a room like this would probably be about $8,500?
Yeah, it depends on how crazy we get on it. I guess actually there's one other cool product that I didn't even talk about because you don't even think about the fact that this wall that looks like stone is actually all absorption. So that's actually a VMT product. So it's a printed panel. It's actually made out of recycled plastic bottles. It's made with PET.
Nice.
A box of these panels, that comes in a box of 8, is about 255 recycled plastic bottles.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, so it's a good material for absorption. We found that it's efficient, but it's also environmentally friendly, and it's nice to be able to say that we're taking plastic out of the ocean.
There was I don't know if you saw this last week, but there was a guy that went down to the Mariana Trench, which is the deepest. I can't remember how many miles down it was. It's more than Everest down, and they found a plastic bag at the bottom down there. So.
Yeah.
So anything you can do to help is fantastic.
Exactly.
Well, thanks ever so much.
Yeah, appreciate it.
The rooms all sound great. So.
Yeah, we're really happy with the way things turned out.
Marvelous. Ronnie, thank you ever so much.
Oh my gosh, thank you. You are always welcome.
Well, you know what? We're going to take him up on that frequently.
Absolutely.
So you might see more stuff from here. Thank you ever so much. It was really, really wonderful. Love what you're building here.
Thank you.
All the rooms sound fantastic, and you have great people around you, my friend.
Awesome. That's the only way you can do it, right? It's not one person. It's a whole village.
Marvelous. Please leave a bunch of comments and questions below. Have a marvelous time recording and mixing.